So again, welcome back for the conclusion of our inventory discussion. We will be reviewing item recs, verification levels, and our process tasks. However, we will start off this afternoon by reviewing some helpful reports. I just want to repeat something that I said this morning. For those of you who may not have attended this morning's presentation, you are all muted upon entry. And as I move through the presentation, you may have questions. In your upper left-hand side of your screen, you will see a Q&A tab. Please use the Q&A tab to ask your questions, and we will answer them. Okay, so let's get started with some very helpful inventory reports. To get there, we'll go in Materials Management, Inventory Reports, and we're going to start with the Daily Department Usage Report. This will break down the department activity pulling from that inventory in a given date range. So let's go ahead. We've been working with our ORCS, so we will continue this afternoon. We could put in a range of date. I'm going to just put in today because I've done quite a bit today in our 01-6000. I could enter more departments if I wanted to, but I'm just interested in 01-6000. I can include department issues. I would enter a D. If I only wanted to see patient issues, I would enter a P, but I want to see both, so I'm going to leave it at B for both. So we can see, again, we did quite a bit of work today with our 01-6000. You can see that we have our OR Central Supply Inventory, what was the department usage for 01-6000 and the date range. You can see the date. You can see we did a lot of issuing. We did a return. You can see the stock number that was either issued or returned, the description, what was the quantity involved in each of these issues or returns, what was the unit of measure, the value, who was the user, and the requisition number if there was one. Another report I want to show you is the net change report. And this is really a good way to analyze any fluctuations of the inventory's quantities and the values over a certain period of time. So again, we'll put in our ORCS inventory, and let's say we're interested in anywhere from 30 days ago till today. Select OK, and we will print the report. And you can see, again, it gives us which inventory I'm looking at, what is the date range. We'll get the stock number. We have a description, the unit of issue, and now we have two big grand columns up here. These all refer to quantities, and these all refer to values. So you can see what the open was, the net, and the close. And again, for the values, what was the open, the net, and the close. So again, a good way to see how the stocks are moving within this inventory. We also have the print stock with no activity report. Now this can be used with multiple inventories. You can just use one inventory if you want, or you can list multiple. You can look at a stock with a specific status. An important field that I like to point out on this report is the include stock with no activity from. So maybe you only want to see the stock that hasn't had any activity within the last 180 days. So what would this report be telling you if you're running it this way? What is it telling you? Well, maybe you are issuing stock, but not using the routines that we discussed this morning to deplete the inventories properly. Perhaps this is a stock that you've phased out and they really shouldn't be on your shelves any longer. Or another another thing that this report might be pointing out is that maybe it's a non-stock item that you actually purchase infrequently. So again, a very helpful report to look at the activity or the no activity of stock. The next thing I'm going to hop over to is requisition reports. We have the print requisition report. This is just simply to print hard copies of the line-by-line detail of your requisitions, whereas we have our list requisitions report. This really is just a one-line snapshot of the recs being pulled from an inventory. We do have the print master list by stock number. And this is a way that you can look at a pick list for multiple requisitions. This compiles a master pick list that you can use to pull the items from the shelves, from the multiple requisitions, and deliver them all to the different departments. So it's as simply as putting in the inventory and then what specific requisitions do you want to pull, and you'll get a master pick list. We have the print back order list report. And this is going to give us a master list of all the multiple recs. You can do it by inventory. You can do it by any restock requisitions. You could do it for department, recurring, or work order requisitions. So what I like about this report is the include only fillable stocks. So maybe you have all those requisitions that are in a back order status and you want to start taking care of those back orders using the process back order tab that we saw earlier this morning. And so maybe you only want to see the stocks that they've been filled, and now you can go ahead and process those back orders on those recs. So again, important field down here, yes or no, include only fillable stocks. Okay, this does wrap up the inventory portion of the presentation. I'm now going to continue with our next session, and it's going to discuss the item recs, the verification groups, and tasks. So just to get a quick preview, I'm going to go back to our slides. So process item requisition. This routine allows end users to request stock and non-stock goods for their department through one requisition. So they can place it all on just one rec. Users can order directly off of a predefined template as well. The goals will be to learn how to create an item requisition template. We will then create and process an item with the use of that template. We will also learn how to add stocks or items to an item rec and modify the template with a new addition. We have the Verify Groups overview. The setup of these dictionaries ensures that the correct users are verifying purchase orders and purchase or inventory requisitions. When this is used in conjunction with the process tasks routine, once a level is verified, the system automatically notifies the user in the next level that they also need to verify the PO or purchase rec. Our goals for the Verify Groups is to learn how to use the Verify Groups and to set them up in a dollar hierarchy. We will also review the 3 types of Verify Groups and how they differ. The process tasks overview. This routine will be used to notify users when an action needs to be taken in materials management. A user can be notified that they have received a new task through an email notification. Utilization of this routine can reduce the amount of time it takes to process a routine throughout materials management. And the goals for process tasks. You're going to learn how to launch from this routine, the tasks that need to be reviewed, show how a text message can be sent to another user as a form of communication in the process task routine, and demonstrate how a task can be reassigned to a new user. So, okay, on that, let's get started. I'm going to end today being in the system, so I'm going to hop back in and review item recs. We will be processing our item recs in the requisition desktop, but before we do that, I want to hop into the template dictionary. So we're going to go into dictionaries, requisition template, item recs, and enter edit. I'm going to start by entering a purchase facility that the requisition should be generated from. I'm going to choose my med facility. And here I can do a lookup, or I can create a new rec if I want here, but I'm going to do a lookup to one that we already have, nursing supplies. So again, this dictionary that I am working in right now, this is going to show us how to create an item rec template, and then you would use that template and we will use this one when we create an item rec. The requisition categories, we've talked about that earlier today and how they can be useful. We could include to add lines from a recurring rec. We could include items from a non-stock rec or from an item rec template. So really the idea of the item rec is that you can request non-stock items from a vendor, and you can request stock items from an inventory right on the same requisition. So once we process the item rec and post the item rec, it will split off into two. One, a purchased rec, and another, an inventory rec. And we can also select multiple inventories. Over here, you see that we have authorized users. This just restricts access to the template. So let's go to the enter or edit lines. You can see we can order our lines by specific categories, perhaps. Maybe we want to see by item number, and it will change it here. Maybe I want the non-stock versus the stocked items to be separated. So again, useful for looking through your template. I could leave the quantity as 0 if I wanted to and just enter it when I am actually creating my item rec. The location will default if it's stocked, as well as the inventory, and if it's non-stocked, the vendor will appear. We have this just in time. If this were flagged to yes, it will skip the PO requisition and go straight to a just-in-time queue, and a PO will be generated. We have the units of purchase for this item and the respective vendor, or based upon the UP within the stock dictionary. And you can see the item dictionary information in this gray area. We could also define a location or instructions as well. So I'm going to cancel out of this rec. And let's go use it in a requisition, an item rec. So I'm going to go back to my requisitioning desktop. I'm going to go to my item rec tab over here on the right menu. I am in my med facility, which is where I want it to be. Otherwise, I could go to my select button and I could change up any of this information if I wanted to. I'm going to go to my create new rec footer button, and then this is where I'm going to select my item rec template. I can do a lookup to see all the ones I have available and pull in my nursing supplies, and of course the department populates. Now when I save this, I'm going to get a pop-up report indicating the lines that have been loaded onto my item rec. And here it's telling us we have the item rec template, nurse supplies for department 6010, and all 4 lines were loaded. So that's good. That's what was on our template. I can now go to the Enter or Edit Lines footer button. And if I want to edit any of these already existing lines or add new lines, I could. I would enter an N here for the next new line for the requisition to review. Again, we have the Get footer button. We could search for an item if an abundance of items exists on the rec to determine whether or not the item is on the requisition. Or we could add quantities if we wanted to, or remove quantities. And again, we have the deliver to location and the instructions for a quantity. So all very similar. I'm going to go ahead, if I'm happy with the way this looks, this is exactly what I want to order, I'm going to go ahead and save. One field I want to point out is this quick enter button. If you want to restrict your users to just editing the quantity on the template and not be able to add new lines, you might want to have the quick enter button on your user's menu and remove the enter or edit lines. We have the enter or edit comments tab. Here we could enter a comment. It's free text, and when it prints, it will have an asterisk next to the comments that were entered. I have the Verify tab. Once I verify the working status, we'll go to an open status now. I could still add lines. If I wanted to enter or edit any of the requisition, it would go back to a working status if I were to use this enter or edit line. And now I can go ahead and post. And this is the action that causes the different requisitions to be created, and it will go into a closed status. This report, a list is going to display the inventory, the purchase facility, the purchase requisition number, the purchasing facility that was created and verified, and it's also going to show me my stock requisition for the store's inventory, and number 42 was created. The Cancel tab, I could cancel a working or open rec. We have the Create Modify Template. I can modify the template from within this desktop without having to hop back into the dictionary. And then we have the List tab to review the requisitions. And here we can see the vendor, the description, if there's a vendor catalog number, if it was just in time, the quantities. So this gives you all the detailed information of the stock recs and the purchase recs that were created from this item rec. Okay, that concludes our item recs. Next, we're going to talk about process tasks. So you would use this routine to process and assign your tasks. So to get a better feel of this, of course, we're going to start in the dictionary. We're going to go into the dictionary, security, and task configuration, enter edit. This table is what we need to set up tasks in our system. So if we want to generate a task for verifying a purchase rec, we would flag this to Y. Now, who gets the task? That is going to be determined by the users listed in the verification group dictionary, which we will see shortly. Basically, this dictionary indicates we will use tasks, but the who will be within the purchase rec verification group dictionary. This field notifies users of task events. If you have selected to have a pop-up message appear every time you enter a desktop, this indicates if the message generates every time or only for new tasks that need to be addressed by you. If we want tasks for invoice exceptions, we would flag this to yes. However, in this case, the who is found down here. The buyer would get an FYI task, and the invoice user would be the default user. Inventory recs to process. If we want to use a verification task for inventory recs, we can choose the verify option here. And then we do have work orders and the compiled reports to print as well. So now that I've reviewed the task configuration dictionary, now let's go into the verify groups. And we're going to start off with the enter, edit, purchase requisitions. We do have to start off by defining a facility. And then we can have multiple groups for one facility. I'm going to do a lookup and select our group 1. We have override user. If there is a buyer on the purchase rec, the override user will get the task instead of the buyer. We have the default user. If there is no buyer on the purchase requisition, the system will look to the default user for who gets the task. If there is a buyer, the system will ignore the default user entered. We have the default, facility default here. If it's set to yes, I would not be able to get to the departments or the inventories section. Only one verified group can be built for a facility. If I set it to no, I can now restrict by either department or inventory, or if it's blank, there are no GL restrictions. So here we have the department 016,000. So if a purchase rec you are verifying would not fall under this group, but another verification group, or under no group at all. We have verification levels 1, 2, and 3. We could have up to 4. We have users defined in each of these verification levels. But to make a little bit more sense about the verification levels and the users, I'm actually going to hop down here to the dollar amount. So the dollar range is for each verification level. We see here some dollar limits. I'm looking at these dollar limits. They don't really look all that realistic for a hospital, but you'll get the general idea. Any purchase rec that are between $0 and $49.99 will only need one level of verification. So who is doing the verifying? We'll highlight this verification level 1. We can see that Andy here is the default user to verify the dollar amount of the purchase rec. So let's say there's a rec that comes in for $60. Now we need 2 levels of verification. So when we look at verification level number 1, Andy's will verify it up to the $49.99, and then we look to level 2, and Chuck here is the default user, so he will receive a task stating that there is a rec for him to verify. Lastly, we have the most expensive purchase recs. We would need all 3 levels. of verification for this very expensive purchase. So notice we have MT in all of the levels. The first two are as an FYI, and then it's a default user in level number 3. So if needed, MT could go in and verify any of the levels of the purchase rec. So I've been using the term default user. If the user is flagged as default, such as Andy here, he will receive a task notification that there is a purchase rec needing his attention. When he looks to the task table, it will be bolded. The MT user will receive an FYI task only, and it will be grayed out, as I'll show you shortly. So once Andy has done his thing, launched the task, verified the purchase rec, now our level 2 user will receive the task. So that's Chuck. Chuck will get notification that his services are needed. The task will be bolded on his table. He'll take care of it. And then finally, MT will receive the task for his verification. And once it is verified at all 3 levels, the purchase rec goes into a verified status to be pulled onto a purchase order. So let's take a look at this default user and what it means. This is the purchase rec buyer. So as I went through all the levels, if a default was inadvertently not flagged, let's say at level 2, Chuck is not flagged as the default, no one is flagged, then the system will look to the purchase rec buyer to send the task to verify the rec. And now the breakdown of what this notify user order is. Now what I've been explaining is sequential. If it were concurrent, all users would be notified at once, and if I had selected the highest level only, as long as the highest level user is the same on all levels, such as MT, then the task would go to the highest level. So that was the purchase rec verify group. Let's take a look at the purchase order. Now, it's pretty much the same as what we saw. It's pretty much the same theory. The difference is, rather than grouped by department or inventory, it is by PO type. So let's go ahead and put in my med facility. And when I do a lookup, you'll see my 5 PO types. We also have a default group. So if I were to create a default group, then all of the purchase types would fall into this group. But another idea might be create a default group, but it really would only pertain to the purchase, return, service, and inventory. And then I would create another purchase order verify group for capital items only. Because capital items tend to be more expensive, maybe I want a special group just for capital items with different users who can only look at capital items. So if a capital PO were to come in, it would fall under a different group. I'm just going to stick with my default for now, and you can see all the fields are pretty much exactly the same that we saw on the other one. Okay, the last verified group we want to take a look at, and it's the most straightforward of them all, is the inventory rec verify group. For the mnemonic, we'll do a lookup, and I'm going to select an existing CS department. Here, this verified group applies to any inventory rec that's pulling stock from the CS inventory to either department 6010 or 6040. So if there's a department type rec pulling from the CS inventory, but it's not one of these departments, then this verify group would not apply. You can see the verify users. It is all or nothing. There is no dollar limit. Both users can verify and post, but MT happens to be the default user, so MT would receive the task notification for this verify group. This dictionary can also be used for restock for inventories as well. Okay, so now that we've got the dictionaries, we're going to talk about process tasks. Now there is a process tasks found on the main menu. Or by going into the requisitioning desktop, or most of the desktops within the within materials management, you have the process tab on the very top of your right-hand menu. So I'll go ahead and select the process tasks. And here I'm brought to my process task table, and you will note immediately there are bolded lines. These are the new tasks, and they're assigned to me, and I need to look at, and I have not reviewed them yet. We can see the date when the message was generated. There are different types. This would be the P over would be the purchase orders to verify. This would be your purchase order invoice exceptions. You also could have purchase recs to verify, inventory recs, text messages, work scheduled, or compiled reports. You'll see the status of the task, who is the user responsible with the task, a little bit of a description of what the task is all about. We also have a plus button, and this will give us a history of the task rather than accessing the history tab down below. So a real quick way of getting an idea of what the history is for this particular task. We also have the launch routine, and you would use this to initiate the appropriate routine, and you would select without exiting. I don't have to go into the desktop, any of the desktops, to actually look at this routine. It will launch me there automatically. I can take a look at it. I could print it out, make sure I like this PO. If I'm happy with it, I can go ahead and verify it. I am able to verify it at both levels, so I will continue with OK. It's not on the VIQ. You would have seen most of this yesterday. And now when I go to my back button, you'll see that it is no longer bolded, that I have taken care of it. We have, if I check mark this, we have the print tasks. I would use this routine to print a report for the tasks that I have selected. I've only selected one, so I would see just that one. And here we can see the purchase order. We have the list tasks. I would use this routine to list all the tasks that appear on the process screen. I could send a message. I would use this routine to send a message to other users, and this would create a text message, TXT, MSG, text message. And to see what message I may have sent, I would go down to this list history button, and it would tell me, give me that information there. I could add a message. I'd use this routine to add a text message to the task. The system records this action as an event for the task, and once you click the box next to the task number, you will be able to add your message. I could reassign a task. I would use this routine to assign selected incomplete tasks to another user, and it would appear on their work list. So it would be better to use this one. I could reassign the task and maybe give it to, C. Buckley to look at. And now it is grayed out on my list because I've reassigned it to Chuck. I can change the status from hold to open or open to hold. I mean, open to hold or hold to open. The list history. I'd use this routine to list the events of the selected task. This is the same as selecting the plus button. You can print a report of transactions that for the specific highlighted task entry to provide an audit trail. And if there were any FYI tasks, we could manage the FYI. I would see them grayed out, and I would not be able to launch them. And then we have the refresh button. The refresh button will drop off any tasks that do not adhere to my preferences. Okay, everyone, that actually concludes the material for today. I told you this section wasn't going to be too terribly long. I want to thank you very much for your attention and for joining us today. And I hope that you all have a very good afternoon.